All right, guys, JB here, doing the monthly update on real estate trends in the market and all that. And we're going to start in Florida first. So you're probably wondering, Jason, why would you start in Florida first? Who cares? You do Texas stuff because a lot of times what happens in Florida and or Texas affects the other state. So let's take a look here at this post on X, which I believe was from yesterday. I know it was in the last week. Ron DeSantis came out and said property taxes are local, not state. So we need to do a constitutional amendment, requires 60% of voters to approve to eliminate them, which I would support, or even to reform or lower them. We should put the boldest amendment on the ballot that has a chance of getting that 60%. I agree with taxing land property is the more oppressive and ineffective form of taxation. What does this mean for Texas? So goes Florida, goes Texas. So goes Texas, goes Florida. And to a certain extent, what happens in California also flows across the eastern United States from the west east. If Florida is able to pass some sort of major property tax relief or eliminate property tax altogether and put it all on a sales tax, you could see a massive impact on real estate. Huge. This is a very big deal. I'll give you a great example. There's a house I'm looking at to buy right now. This is an investment deal. This is a house I've always wanted to buy. It pops up on the market, actually pops up on the market for rent every couple of years. So yesterday, I finally reached out to the agent and I said, look, would you consider selling this house? And she's like, I'm renting it out right now. My husband and I have owned it for a long time. Not sure. I said, well, would you do a lease option? Could I rent it for a year or two with an option to purchase it? She goes, we might consider that. I said, okay. Well, what are the terms? So I'm waiting for her to get back with me with the terms. However, this is a $650,000 house that rents for $3,000 a month. Her taxes alone are $1,000 a month. Insurance and her HOA and probably some little maintenance and some other stuff probably runs about another $500 a month. So she's renting, or she's trying to get $3,000. It's rented for about $2,500, $2,600 to pass. So you figure, let's call it $1,500 a month in expenses. By the way, there's no mortgage. We're just talking about taxes, insurance, HOA, and some maintenance, make-ready expenses that pop up from time to time. It's a little bit older home. You're looking at $1,500 a month. 50% of her income just goes towards those expenses, which for those of you who are multifamily, you're like, yeah, I mean, we account for a 50% expense ratio all day long. Well, they don't do that in single family. But anyway, so she's got a 50% expense ratio on a $600,000 asset. Probably make more sense for her to sell that asset and go buy something else that has lower expense ratio relative to the entire value of the house. Now, one could argue what she bought it for, and I think she bought it for like $300,000, maybe 6-7 years ago, something like that. So doubled in value in about 6 to 7 years. That's pretty much average for the state of Texas. So now we've got this here, this property tax issue. If they're able to eliminate property taxes in Florida, I think we're going to see a pretty dramatic shift here in Texas, probably to a more consumption-based tax, which actually makes more sense. Now the question is, Jason, why does that make more sense? I'm not going to get into all of the economics here, but there's something called deadweight loss, and tariffs to a certain extent, and taxes are the same thing. In that, in order for you to bring goods or services into the state, the consumer and the producer, the buyer and the seller, share in that increase in the cost of the good, which includes taxes. So they sell less goods. Maybe they'd eat a little bit of their margin, so they sold the same amount of goods. The buyer would pay more for it, maybe buy less of it. So it takes a little while, but there would be some sort of equilibrium there. I personally, from a tax standpoint, think this makes way more sense, especially nationally. I really think we ought to just eliminate all taxes altogether. It should be 100% consumption-based taxes. If you want access, and here's why. Here's what I'll tell you. Our companies here in the United States have to provide really great health care compared to the rest of the world. They have to provide very very safe workplaces. They have to do it in an environmentally conscious manner. They have all these regulations they have to adhere to in order to produce goods here in the United States. However, China doesn't have to do that. They just don't. You can't argue with that. China doesn't have the same quality standards that we do here in the United States with regards to worker protections. However, that's a cost borne by the manufacturer. So, all things being equal, if you want access to this marketplace, I think you should have to have the same cost basis when it comes to production, at least the elements of production when it comes to labor. So, if you want to play in this market, you got to pay in this market. It's very simple. Anyway, long story short, property taxes change in Florida. I can guarantee you it's going to happen here. This is very interesting. This happened just in the last week. So, I don't know where it's going to go. Just telling you, happened last week. All right. Market updates, some very interesting things that are happening. Let me highlight a couple of things for you here. Single family home months of inventory is up to 4.3 months. Thank God. We are finally getting some more inventory on the market and things are starting to go back to normal. A normal market is where the months of inventory is somewhere between 4 to 6 months. So what does that mean? What that means is that if no new houses come on the marketplace, in other words, no new listings hit the marketplace, it would take 4.3 months in order for us to sell all the houses in the marketplace. It's just a barometer of the supply and demand curves, if you will, supply and demand of single family real estate in any marketplace. I like it. It's a good metric. You'll also notice a couple other things. So I really focus on single family here. So single family year over year inventory is only up 1.2%. So here's one of the things I think people make a mistake of. When they read through this, they look at total active listings are up 26%. That's not really a great way to look at the Houston housing market. We're just looking at single family. So if you look at total active listings, it's up 26%. Well, what does that include? That includes condos, townhome, land, apartments. There's some commercial stuff that ends up on here from time to time, like commercial land, because we have no zoning here in Houston and a lot of areas like out in the counties that HAR would be pulling from. I don't know this, but I would ask this of HAR, of HAR. We just merged with Sabre, and I forget what Dallas is. Sabre is a San Antonio Board of Realtors, Austin, which is ABOR, and then the DFW area. So we're now pulling data from all those. I assume that doesn't include those marketplaces because it would be really stupid if it did in these numbers because it's not traditionally the Houston Metroplex. So the Houston Metroplex from the geographical statistical area, the GSA, starts in the Woodlands, goes all the way to Galveston, goes as far west as Brookshire, and as far east as damn near to Beaumont. It's a huge area. It's the largest real estate market in the country. It's 10,000 square miles. So it's very, very big, which is one of the reasons why Houston and the Houston MSA is not included anywhere in the Case-Shiller Index. It's not included in the 20 city composite or the 10 city composite because it's just too damn big. It would screw all the statistics up. So good on Schiller to keep that out of the database. In any case, so single family home sales or single family homes were only up 1%. So there are people running around saying crazy stuff right now that the Houston real estate market's going to crash because there's all this new inventory. Dude, it's 1%. It's 1%. Sorry, it's not something to be worried about. And then we have single family average sales and median sales. This includes new and existing homes, which I like to call pre-owned or used homes. Of course, no one calls them that, but I think it's kind of funny compared to cars, right? However, let's talk about existing homes because I think that is a more apples to apples comparison. And let's go down here. Usually it's right around here. Here we go. HAR breaks out sales figures for existing single family homes in January. Existing home sales totaled about 3,500, which is 2.5% compared to the same time in 2024. The average price rose 7.6%. Mind you, this has been one of the worst real estate markets since the Great Financial Crisis. Worse meaning the real estate market is technically the real estate industry, probably a better way to put it. The real estate industry is in a recession. What does a recession mean? Recession means of in an industry, a recession is losing jobs. It's very simple. It's a shrinking of the marketplace. So since about late 2022, early 2023, the real estate industry, meaning people who work in the industry, it's been shedding jobs. Mortgage people, real estate agents, brokers, insurance people. They live on transaction volume, and transaction volume has plummeted. That's basically what that means. Um, I would have to look and see how residential construction employment looks, but when that dips, typically that's when we see a recession. It's just been typical. So it doesn't mean real estate's in a market crash and all that. Market crashes are every 20 years. A lot of folks don't know that. It's about every 20 years. So HAR breaks these out. Average price rose 7.6%. Median sales price increased 4.5%. Houston, Texas, and actually in Texas in general, our median appreciation is about 5% a year. That's about average. I think this is going to be one of the lowest between 23, 24, really 24 and possibly halfway through 25. We'll see. I'm seeing some data that says this may or may not happen. Is going to be the lowest levels of appreciation for a long time. That's just what's going to happen. I've said back in 2017, if you think real estate's expensive now, just wait. That prediction I had made would end sometime in 24 or 25. Now, of course, I wasn't accounting for the pandemic in 2017, but just recognize that 2024, 2025, and really into 26, we're going to see what the next real estate cycle really looks like. I am really encouraged by this because this looks like a normal market. Normal markets are what you want as an investor, as a potential homeowner, as a tenant. You want a normal market, little appreciation here and there. Your rent's going to go up, costs are going up, inflation. There's always inflation. There's very, very few times in history you've got a deflationary market cycle. So I would be very encouraged by these modest increases, these modest gains in the price of real estate. I wouldn't get really worked up about rapid price increases or interest rates. It looks like interest rates are going to stay relatively flat, which is kind of wild when you think about it. I mean, I thought we'd start seeing decreases in interest rates. Now, I believe Powell's term, let me see, it ends in 2026. Powell's term. When does Powell's term end? May 2026. And my guess is Donald Trump is going to bring in someone who is very pro low interest rates. That's just the reality. So my guess is we're going to be on this track unless we see some giant recession or some other huge issue here in the next year or so. In any case, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you all next time.